Welcome to this podcast series called Stepping into the Yellow Zone. I'm Juliet Kosarzycki, founder of Yellow Zone International, and I'm doing a series of podcasts where I interview people who have stepped into the yellow zone. And by that I mean that people have either voluntarily put themselves in a situation that's challenging or have found themselves in a situation like that. And usually in these situations, you might have some fear, some doubt, some anxiety. And what I'm talking to people about is how they worked through those emotions. What are the emotions they experienced, how they worked through them, and maybe how this challenging situation ended up benefiting them somehow in their life. So today we're going to talk to Bruce Bitter, who was diagnosed with heart disease. So that certainly is something he did not voluntarily decide to pursue. That's something that ended up becoming part of his life. And I just want to thank you, Bruce, for being on this call with me today.
You're welcome.
All right, why don't we start by just having you tell our listeners about the time when you received this diagnosis. So what was going on in your life, and what were some of the thoughts and feelings you were having?
Well, the long and short of it is I was having some mild chest discomfort. I took a stress test and then a heart catheterization, found out that one of my major heart arteries was 100% blocked. I changed my diet. I had 2 stents placed, and that's the long and short of it right there.
All right. Well, you certainly simplified it into a short little segment there. Let's get into some details about what it was like when you found out what your diagnosis was, like what your actual diagnosis was, what the doctor said to you, and what was going through your mind at that time.
Yeah, well, I was first of all surprised because I didn't think the chest discomfort was from heart disease. I had earlier, about 4 years earlier, had a stress test done and was told that my heart was just fine. Or I should say 7 years earlier, actually. So I knew that the symptoms for heart disease and for acid reflux are about the same, so I thought that was probably what it was, but I was taking this test to rule out the heart. And then as it turned out, and then initially I would say, I first of all surprised. There was some denial because when the cardiologist told me about the stress test, there's 2 separate tests, and when he told me about the stress test, I knew that many stress tests are false positives, so I thought maybe it was a false positive, although he didn't think so at all. And then there was also a real sense of relief because I had been experiencing this chest discomfort for quite a while, years, and I could never really get to the bottom of what was causing it. And at least I knew now what it was and what I had to deal with. And so those would be, I would say, surprise, denial, and whatever the third one I said. Yeah, thank you.
One thing you said that's interesting that I want to go back to is you said you'd been experiencing some discomfort for some time, for years, but apparently it was never anything that was too serious that caused you to go and get any kind of medical attention.
Yeah, because it only happened when I went out for a jog. In my normal everyday to-day life, I never experienced anything. And it was about half a mile into a 3-mile run, typically, or a 5-mile run, that I would experience that, and then it would stay there for the rest of the run. And it would go away afterwards. So.
Well, I suppose when that happens, it becomes part of your routine and part of your normal experience where you just think, oh, my heart is working at, beating hard while I'm jogging, so maybe that's just, what it feels like when my heart is exercising. I mean, was it that kind of a thought, why you maybe just ignored it?
Yeah, that thought, and the other thought would be, well, I'm 57, and maybe that's what happens when you're 57, when you go for a jog.
Right.
Yeah, I was...
Well, and you had some family experience with this as well, so you maybe in the back of your mind, I'm almost wondering if in the back of your mind you were thinking like, on the chance that it might be heart disease, maybe I don't want to know. I'm not going to believe it, so maybe I won't get tested to find out? Could that have been?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that was the deal. That was for sure the situation 7 years earlier when I had the stress test. I thought, well, maybe this is heart stuff, and that would make perfect sense because I have a family history of heart disease. And then what I was told then was, well, it's not your heart, it must be something else. And so I assumed that it was something else, and so that's why it was surprising now.
Interesting. Okay, so surprise was a big factor. And then, like you said, once you got the diagnosis, it's like, okay, now there's a sense of relief because now I know I can do something about it. But what I understand from you is that it wasn't necessarily easy to navigate what to do next, right? Tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, that's challenge number one. Who do you believe when it comes to information about heart disease? Because it's all over the map. And, of course, today we have the blessing of the Internet and YouTube. And, you know, it's a blessing and a curse because, on the one hand, there's all kinds of information out there that was never there before. But at the same time, there's all kinds of contradictory information out there, and you don't know who to believe. So, yeah, so that was the biggest challenge. And I really didn't get a whole lot of direction from the cardiologist. I mean, after my heart catheterization, the recommendation at that facility was that I should have triple bypass surgery, and that's all they talked about. And they couldn't really give me, they just didn't really give me any details as to what was really going on and what heart disease really is and what really causes heart attacks, any of that stuff. I never got that. And so that I had to do that on my own. But then the nice thing is that you've got information out there today that is was not available before, and it became easier and easier to kind of crystallize what exactly is heart disease, what is a heart attack, and what are the best ways to deal with it moving forward.
Right. So I understand that you spent hours watching videos and reading books and just trying to get yourself educated on this, right?
I would say that's a fair way to say it. I mean, when the cardiologist says, well, one of your main heart arteries is 100% blocked, you kind of sit up and pay attention. And really try to figure out what's going on. But for me, it was just trying to figure out what's going on because with heart disease, because I just didn't have any real clue moving into the experience.
So what you knew is that one of your arteries was 100% blocked and that you're going to need to do something about it, whether it's going to be triple bypass surgery or an attempt at having stents do the trick. And
right.
And then also you were looking at just changing your diet. You came to realize that that diet, perhaps even more so than exercise, was a factor in addition to maybe the genetic component.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, the exercise probably didn't have a whole lot to do with heart health. It has a lot. I remembered something that happened back when I was in high school. A guy named Jim Fix, who was a runner, died of a heart attack in his early 40s. And so clearly the exercise, the in shape thing, is not really a factor as far as heart disease is concerned. And I came to a clear understanding that I think there's a genetic predisposition toward heart disease, which I have. But it's kind of like a diabetic, right? A diabetic has a sensitivity to sugars, and so he has to change his diet so that it accommodates his disease. And I think the same thing is true for me. I've got predisposition toward heart disease, and what I eat is going to affect significantly how that disease is managed moving forward.
Right. So certainly for you, the diet was more of a factor than the exercise. Although for other people, maybe the exercise is a factor for them too. So I guess we don't want to.
Well, I think if I was 300 pounds and I needed to get down to 150, exercise might help me get there. Yeah.
Right. Got it. so you had the surprise, and then you found some research, you got some information, and then you realized you needed to start changing your diet. And tell us, how easy or hard was that change for you?
Well, initially it was a matter of getting the right food in my cupboard. That would be challenge number one, because so much of what I had, whether it's, pantry items or whether it's a box item, I became very good at reading ingredients, because so often there are various things in foods that you just don't realize are in there. And so it was a shopping challenge, right? Mm-hmm. For me, that wasn't as hard as it could have been, because I live by myself, so I could do my own shopping for myself. I can cook for myself. I don't have to worry about anybody else having to conform their behavior to my diet, or them feeling that they have to change their behavior to my diet as well. So, but then once I got onto the diet, I really didn't have too much difficulty with it. For me, it's just a pretty simple matter. I get hungry, I eat something, I'm not hungry anymore. And I know that's unusual, I think, because a lot of people very much need variety in the foods that they eat, and that's a big issue. And for me, it's not that big of an issue. The challenge comes with dealing with other people. That's the challenge with a new diet, because either they're angry with you because you have to eat that way and can't eat the way they are, or they're I don't know, feel guilty or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what goes on with that, but or the flip side is that I feel like I'm disappointing somebody, because, for example, if my mom bakes me an apple pie, and I say, well, thanks, Mom, but I can't eat it, right? That's a challenging type situation as far as diet is concerned. And then the other one is when you go out to eat at a restaurant or something like that. It's very difficult to find a restaurant that actually prepares food the way as strictly as I do, as far as what the ingredients are for the food and so on. Yeah. So.
Well, I was wondering if you are willing to just share any of the tips that you came up with on how to deal with the challenge of working with other people, the other people who want to offer you something that's homemade and they want to share it, and they're inviting you over to their meal at their house for a birthday celebration or something like that. I mean, what do you do in those situations to work through that and feel okay about how you're responding?
Well, for a couple of things. I mean, first thing is that there's rarely a place that I can go where there isn't something that I can eat. For example, about a week ago or so, I was invited to kind of a Christmas sort of party, and there was all kinds of food there, but thankfully the host had a tray of fruits and a tray of vegetables, and I was able just to, act like everybody else, and I had a plate full of food, but my food was not the stuff that was off my diet. So that's one way to deal with that. A bigger part of it, I think, for me personally, is that, and it's kind of a psychological or a mental thing. Where do I get my self-esteem from? Where do I get my worth from? Because ultimately, if I'm getting my worth from other people liking me, then that's going to be hard, because that's the fear, right? If I don't eat what they prepared, then they're not going to like me, and that's not their problem. That's my problem. And that's the challenge inside myself that I need to deal with, that my value and worth does not come from other people or what they think or what I think they think or anything else. It comes from my own self-concept and from higher sources than that.
Well, that's interesting to bring that element in terms of really focusing on that this is about me, and it's, I need to do what I need to do for myself, and I need to maybe not be so concerned about how other people might be interpreting my reaction or my action to what they've prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it may sound kind of, I don't know how this sounds, but how I eat is not their problem. It's my issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I do understand that sometimes, not very often, but every once in a while, you will indulge, right?
Yeah, I have done that. Yeah, I have difficult. I haven't quite gotten to the point of understanding that a single meal is going to affect me terribly negatively. I mean, my staple diet it's a plant-based diet. That's my staple diet, and every so often there'll be an occasion, a special occasion, a special meal or something like that. The most recent, there was a play that I was involved with our local theater group, and they have an afterglow after that, and I just ate whatever was there. And actually the following night after that, I was involved with tearing down the set afterwards, and then they had a little bit of a gathering after that, and I ate a bunch of pizza because that's what was available. So from time to time I've done that. I've done that less and less as time has gone on. And I have noticed that when I go off the diet, I don't feel quite as good, and there seem to be some negative consequences to that. So I don't know how that's going to go moving forward, but I haven't been terribly strict with myself. And I don't know. Some experts might say that it's absolutely essential that you keep completely off everything else, because if you have one bad meal, you might have a heart attack. And I haven't gotten to the point of really believing that yet, obviously. So once in a while, I will indulge.
Got it. Well, if this experience maybe happened to you for some reason so that you could somehow learn something or benefit in some way, other than the obvious of becoming healthier, what would you say this experience has given you?
I wouldn't say becoming healthier. I'd say feeling healthier.
Okay.
Because that's really, as I look back at my own personal experience with eating, I've had the whole experience of eating a hamburger, for example, or some meat or a brat or something like that. And then I just have never felt very good after that. In fact, that's about the time, half an hour afterwards, when you take a nap, because I would just feel exhausted. And my experience with this has been just the opposite. Food actually gives me energy, which I think it's supposed to do. And so after I eat, I don't feel like I have to take a nap. I feel like I'm ready to go again and ready to get at something, at the next thing. So, I would say that's one of the biggest benefits of the whole experience, is that the realization that by changing my diet, I can actually feel better and be more productive and happier.
Fantastic. Well, on that happy note, I think we'll wrap this up. So thank you, Bruce, for sharing with us about your experience of being diagnosed with heart disease and the stages you moved through, everything from being surprised and going through denial and experiencing relief and then doing the research and then making some real changes and having some challenges come up as you went through those lifestyle and diet changes, and then, realizing what you needed to do in order to cope with that, and, getting a strong sense of your own, where your self-worth comes from, and having a strong self-concept to deal with some of the challenges when other people might have lifestyles that are different than yours as it comes to eating. And just realizing that in the end, all of this is making you feel healthier, and that makes you feel happier and more productive in life. So what a great story. And certainly I wish you continued health and continued success in following your plans. So
Thank you.
Thank you. That wraps up this podcast for Stepping into the Yellow Zone, and please join us next time as we continue to interview other people who have stepped into their yellow zone. Have a good night.